Welcome back to the People's Social Impact Conference 2025, and we are in day six. This is the final day of our fifth annual Social Impact Gathering. My name is Malaysia Mensa. We greatly appreciate all the brilliant leaders that came together to make this possible. As always, we begin all things by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who have toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stewards whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Today we have the special closing address from Senator Rosa Galvez. How are you this morning?
Thank you. Fine. Thank you so much for this kind invitation.
Yeah, so please introduce yourself and
I'll go ahead.
yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for this kind invitation. It's always so important and essential that I'm not only as a senator of our ex-scientist, but also as a citizen to see how much, society is developing and what we can do and how we can help this important development. So I will go ahead with my presentation and hopefully it will trigger some personal questions and or trigger questioning and about how society is progressing. So I was asked to talk about a little bit about myself. So I'm Peruvian origin. I was born in Lima, but I visit all South American and the Americans and around the world because of my research activity. I did engineering background in Peru and then did a master's and a PhD at McGill University. And after that, I went as a researcher working for Laval University, work a lot on environmental issues, developing remediation process, especially bioremediation, working with contaminated soils from oil spills or closing down oil mines or better designing landfill sites. And then I went into the waste management and the recycling. And when it was very evident that climate change was there and it was causing a lot of struggle and a lot of destruction with these extreme weather events, it really impacted my career because I started looking into, as a civil engineer that I was at the base, how these extreme weather events can really destroy this basic infrastructure and how we need to do both mitigate and adapt to this planet warming. And in 2016, to my own surprise, I just sent my CV to the new appointing process for the Senate, and I was one of the first senators to be nominated under the new process, the new appointing process, and I represent Quebec. Near the Bedford, the border with the United States, which now is taking us so much attention. What is happening with our southern neighbor? So I am somebody that likes putting my hands on whatever I do. And lab is okay, lab is good, but I have been always as an engineer trying to upscale whatever things, whatever remediation process, whatever units and operations so we can improve in the field. So I develop several processes that I'm very proud to say that I, for example, a biolixiviation process to recuperate precious metals from mining residues are in operation in some parts of the world. I also developed a process to take out the exceeding salts of the runoff of the highways in Canada because there is too much salt that we apply to the maintenance of the roads in winter. But I have also worked in the Arctic because there has been so many oil spills in the Arctic, but because the temperatures and the conditions, it takes forever to remediate. So I've been in the field. That's what to tell you that I have been always a person hands-on, open doors, and that's the way science progress. And one thing that impressed me a lot a little bit negatively in the Senate is how we want everybody to think the same instead of taking the best of everybody in order to have something that is good for everybody. So in science, different opinions are invited. Diversity is invited because we know that if we don't, for example, if we don't take in consideration the opinion of half of the population, the women, into whatever we are trying to solve, well, it's going to be not as efficient if we would have considered the whole. And the same thing is for any minority or vulnerable population, so society is judged by how we treat the vulnerable of all of us. Okay, so I'm a senator since 2016, and what I do? So for sure, our work is intrinsically related with legislative review, legislative improvement, representing my region, in this case, Quebec, in this case, minority as immigrants in Quebec. We are said to be the chamber of sober second thought because we are there appointed for until 75 years old. So we don't have the excuse of saying, okay, I was not reelected, or I have to spend time in candidature and campaigns because I'm there. And so I should dedicate all my time to reflect long-term minority regional issues and see how I can improve the situation for Canadians. We also work on public policy leadership and advocacy. We have committees in the Senate, and since the beginning, I have been working in several of them. I've been, and I should be the chair coming after prorogation of the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Permanent Senate Committee. I am also in the National Finance Committee. They're revising and reviewing proposed legislation, but also independent studies that the committee can decide. Like, for example, if everything goes well, in the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee, we should do a study on the impact of extreme weather events in society. We can also sponsor bills, like I will talk about several bills that I have sponsored in the Senate, and private members' bill, meaning my own bill. We have this power of holding the government accountable, and we also have the opportunity to work as diplomats in parliamentary affairs and engage at the international level. Now, of course, because of my background, of course, that I'm an immigrant, protecting minority and indigenous rights, environment protection, conservation, and protection and conservation leadership. And I'm very, very much interested in the social and economic justice because inequality is growing. I invite you to read my last op-ed that was published in Corporate Knights on my opinion on what the Trump second-term administration is bringing to Canadians, and why we have to be mindful and be prepared for what is coming. So, talking about climate and environmental policies in Canada, there has been a lot of development, okay? I want to say that from the beginning is that unfortunately, I do remember being a professor at Laval University and telling my students in the 90s, passing from saying Canada has one of the best frameworks to protect the environment to all of a sudden say, oh my God, we don't have anything that protects the environment. And so I'm asking you as an engineer, because as an engineer, you have a note to protect public safety. And so that was, very impactful for me because the career of an engineer is forward. And I felt like, we were allowed at the point to not to look at very important things, like, for example, an impact assessment of infrastructures. We were not carrying any more sort of hazardous substances. And we gave a lot of back the responsibility to corporations to auto-regulate themselves in the environment. And one of my last projects as a researcher working for Laval University was to study the causes, the reasons, the remediation, the impacts of the Lac-Mégantic oil spill. And that it really opened my eyes, and it were not really in good shape to do proper due diligence and have the right tools. Like, for example, one driver of the 72 wagons and the 4 or 3 locomotive was one person that hadn't slept for the last 48 hours because that was allowed. And so I know because I'm there now that the government is big, is it move very slowly, and that we need to bring efficiency in the government. I know that, but there is a difference between um, cutting, thinking about improving efficiency, and just cutting for cutting posts or tasks or responsibilities, and not doing the due diligence and checking if the corporations to which we give the new responsibilities, they are up to the task. So, and this is already happening in the state. We are seeing what is happening. So it's not nothing that we don't know. So I look with good eyes that this last government in Canada put a lot of environmental regulations, the carbon pricings. We reviewed the impact assessment. There was an oil tanker moratorium. I support the government. I sponsor the Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act in the Senate, and in my committee in environment, energy, natural resources, we review all these three. Were they perfect? No. Do they show some progress? Yes. And I will show you some specifics about that. But there is still so many things that we can do. And we were already so much behind that we are not there yet compared to other peers in the G7 or some group as, for example, Europe. Now with prorogation, as you can imagine, so many legislations died, including the one that I presented, the Climate Aligned Finance Act. But also another one which I am sponsoring is the S289, the Gatineau Park Act. So you can imagine Gatineau Park is, everybody recognizes that it's a park, everybody recognizes that it's a jewel for conservation, but it's been like 80 years, people are trying to make it a formal park so it can be protected by all the stand of the law that protects national parks, but it's not. So there are things, as I said, that we are behind. And the most recently was the Sustainable Jobs Act that we passed, and the Canada, Newfoundland, and Labrador Atlantic Accord in order to allow for wind energy. So I'm happy that we have a Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act, and that we have a plan, and that we have a goal, and that a net zero advisory body was created with this legislation. That's the good part. But the negative part is that as Canada, as a G7 country, we are the only country in the G7 that has not succeeded in decreasing its emission, despite of all these legislations. We are the only one country of the G7 that we have not succeeded in decoupling our economic growth from the emissions. So we have a lot to work and a lot to progress. And if you ask me why is that, well, I will say that while almost every sector have done work that has concretely reduced our emissions, the oil and gas sector keeps increasing emissions. So it doesn't matter how much the other sectors are doing, including construction. Because of the production is increasing in the oil and gas sector, it just keeps increasing. So I think that there is this inequality, there is this inequity and different efforts Yet we all know that we have a shared responsibility with differentiated responsibilities because we have contributed in different manners to this problem. The Sustainable Jobs Act, is to facilitate and promote economic growth, creation of sustainable jobs, support for workers and communities in Canada, and shift to a net zero economy because we need to. What is for me, maybe because I have a more holistic understanding of what's happening, is that we have to start to create the clean economy, the green economy, the the um, the low carbon economy, the knowledge economy, in order that these new economy sectors create these sustainable jobs. But it seems that we do things a little bit reverse. We put there the framework and and we put this bill there, which has passed, which is there, but we haven't done the homework and the work in order to shift the type of economy. We still have a very economy based on natural resources, extractivism, selling our raw products, and and we have to move from that. One important aspect is this post-legislation scrutiny. Our bills, lots of our bills are very old, and they need to be modernized. And especially in the environmental realm. As I said, for example, the Canadian Environmental Protection Act or the Canadian Assessment Act, they are 23, 25, 30 years older. And so many things have changed. So many things have changed. Science has progressed, has advanced. Technology has progressed, has advanced. Understanding is better now. And so we need to revise these old bills in order to make them more up to date. We help us ensure effective implementation, to see if there were unintended consequences, to see if the goals, like for example, reducing the greenhouse emissions, were complying with it, to engage public and stakeholder. But because we don't do systemic post-scrutiny legislation, we cannot know how we are in this, in the Impact Assessment Act. So in the initial one, who was cut in many basic aspects in the 90s, needed to be modernized because it was not working anymore. So some aspects were added, and which I supported and which are very important. Like, for example, we didn't talk about cumulative impacts when we now know very clearly that there are cumulative impacts. We didn't talk about planet warming in the old act, so it was good to add those things. We didn't talk about gender-based analysis, and we know that environmental impact impacts differently to different people. Actually, after reviewing all of that, the government came out with another legislation to stop environmental racism because it was clear that some pollution was allowed in places where minority vulnerable population live. So that is one of the aspects that post-scrutiny legislation brings to the table, which is to be aware of new things that are happening and redress those problems. Another thing that I do a lot, because as a researcher, I was accustomed to bring scientific knowledge to the public and to discuss and debate some of the progress. So something that I have done a lot is write white papers and write op-eds where I explain some new things that are happening. And I think this is important, and I think that it has been very positive because when I presented, for example, my bill on aligning the finance system, Canadian finance system, with the climate commitments, I produced first a white paper where I put all what we were seeing. And then after, when the bill came, I could put together both the bill there, but all the arguments and all the science and all the facts and all the evidence that is there to support the bill. And so writing these white papers, that is 30 pages, 40 pages, and bringing all this knowledge and putting it free for the public to read, and for NGOs or for organizations of ministers, it was, I think, very positive. While we were in the COVID pandemic, I wrote one called Building Forward Better, Clean and Just Recovery from the COVID-19 Pandemics. And I explain how these pandemics can come more frequent because of the environmental problems that what we are seeing. Uh, Another type of work that I do at the Senate is associating myself with important groups that defend the environment. In this case, I am a honorary director, honorary president of Women for Nature. Are known to be looking for the basic things at home, the water, take care of the education, and take care of the health of the children. So they play this incredibly important role in the fabric of society, and they are connected with nature. And so biodiversity is a Pan-American issue, and has allowed me to talk about the importance of regional collaborations, because we have in Canada so many species that they are disappearing because of construction. Well, that impacts this. So I belong to the Parliamentary Friendship of Parliamericas, which unites and all the parliaments of the Americas, including the United States. And we have three main priorities in this network of Parliamericas. One is to promote gender equality. The other one is to promote climate change action and sustainability. And the third is to promote open parliaments. The three things are intrinsically related, and we need to progress them at equal pace, because they are very important in the preservation of democracy and inclusivity and integration of vulnerable populations. I am the president of Parliamericas Climate Change and Sustainability Network, and I'm the co-chair of the Green Economy Caucus. And we produce, again, a lot of publications that explain a lot of things that we want people to know. Because I think that the more we know, the less afraid we are of some important changes that we have to conduct. So what is missing? People have asked me, I had an interview very recently from Le Devoir, who asked me, okay, you have sponsored a lot of legislation for the government. What do you think of progress? But some key issues are not yet touched, which are at the basics of environment protection. One of those is aligning our finance sector, the banks, the pension plans, the insurance, to what are our environmental commitments, and more specifically, what are our climate commitments of the Paris Accord and United Nations Framework for Convention for Climate Change. But there are other things that are missing, as I mentioned when I discussed the bill before. And what I find at the end, my conclusion is that all these changes are fragile, are not strong, because some basic things, as I was mentioning, for example, for the Sustainable Jobs Act, we haven't created yet these jobs. So because the economy is not shifting, the economy is still in the inflationary oil and gas economy, instead of becoming a renewable energy economy that is deflationary. So until we do this big change, it is difficult to create these sustainable jobs. So what is climate finance? As I said, we have to mitigate and we have to adapt. And the the flows of finance needs to shift from the business as usual, the inflationary oil and gas, to deflationary low carbon economy. And when you look inside pension plans, banks, and insurance, you see this double materiality. So you will hear from insurance, and you just need to read the news of what happened after every extreme weather event, is that insurance desert a region, or an insurance increase the premiums, um, because that's the way they are dealing with these extreme weather events and the destruction of basic infrastructure that is not yet completely paid. And so on one hand, you have, for example, the insurance being very scared, very worried about these extreme weather events destroying this infrastructure, these residents, uh, but at the same time, they keep fueling the climate crisis because they keep investing in oil and gas. In our banks, for example, um, everybody, with economic and energy, that the climate crisis is real, is costing us very expensive, and that we have to shift from business as usual to a more sustainable economy. Everybody saying that, and more. They are saying that the investment should go $4 to renewable energy versus $1 to oil and gas, and that this dollar that goes to oil and gas should be for emission reductions. But in reality, when you look into the numbers, it's exactly the opposite. So our 5 banks are investing $3.9 into the oil and gas and only $1 into renewable energy. So this is impacting our development, on our innovation, in our research and development, in our competitiveness, and finally in our productivity. And we are being left behind. If you see our pension plans, I go to COPs, I go around the world, and I talk to people, and I learned that our pension plans, which is our money, Canadian money, is investing in renewable energy in China, in Brazil, in Mexico, but it's not investing in Canada. And again, a lot of our money is invested outside in this new economy, but not in us. And why is that at the end? Well, I think there is no secret that the lobby of oil and gas in Canada is very, very strong. And to change that is going to take a lot. So what does my bill? My bill tries to say we cannot be locked into this um, oil and gas economy. We have to have scientific, science-based targets. We have to have individual plans for sectors. We have, like for many other reasons, like for example, take the cryptocurrency, so banks and insurance, they all have money put aside in case something happened with these new sectors. The same thing should be for global warming. The capital requirement for this systemic climate risk that it is there and is materializing in front of our own eyes, it should be taken in consideration. In the boards of the finance sector, in the boards of these corporations, there is evident and flagrant conflict of interest, because you have people that sit in a pension plan and sits in oil and gas, or people that sits in oil and gas that sits in banks. So, it's a very cozy group that just keep rotating the money among them. And this is penalizing our sustainable future. So I don't want to go into the details of CAFA DAS, but we want to change the mission, because right now the mission is just, bring money to shareholders, when maybe we have to look into other superseding responsibilities, align the missions with our climate commitments, disappear this conflict of interest, make these adequate capital requirements, and mandate a review of, again, the post-scrutiny legislation, mandate these reviews. Final words, because I was asked to say, in the best of the worlds, what we could see. Well, if we were in the best of the world and everybody have the same understanding of what is going on, we must say that environment and economy have been seen as opposite, and we must repair this situation. And there are causes, very, very linear economy that takes out, out of the 100% that we take from nature, 60% end up as a waste, either as an emission or as a. We know that science is clear. We know that technology is there. We know that money is there because money is there for many other things. There are many already concepts there. We have to go back to the values of cooperation, solidarity, think about sustainability. There is this wonderful program of One Planet, One Health. And I want to talk about circular economy just after I talk about the planetary limits. So this linear economy has caused a lot of pollution, and this pollution in the form of emission has caused the planet warming. But it has caused also biodiversity reduction, acidification, and we know about the plastic floating in the oceans. So we have transgressed 6 out of the 9 planetary limits that makes life on Earth possible, human life on Earth possible. So we need to bring down these. We have to redress these situations, and maybe what we can do is to accept that part of the world still needs to have the social foundation that we have enjoyed, the developed country we have enjoyed. Yes, because I talk to people in Africa, I talk to people in South America, and even this social contract that was there is not there anymore, and we need to address that and allow for the development of these in these areas. But we have at the same time to accept and admit that there is an ecological ceiling, that the planet cannot just, it's not a infinite system, it's a limited, especially when we talk about non-renewable natural resources, and that there is an area, and this is the donut economy, that humans can thrive. So we have to move from a linear economy to a circular economy. They have to just to take out of the production process. And this is many of the plastics that we produce that are choking our oceans. And today we find microplastics in every single organ and in the human body. So they were in excess, and they have to be not only controlled, but I think that we have to have a holistic view and a lifetime life cycle analysis in order to turn our economy from linear to circular. So at the end, what I'm saying we should see is that initially we used to see society, economy, and environment as being 3 different sectors. We have to look into more overlapping into our social issues, the conservation of the environment, and how economy can promote a sustainable development. And so we used to see it as the first graph in the left, sustainable development being at the overlapping of society, economy, and environment. But today, I think that's not even enough, because we should see clearly that the economic domain is within our social domain. Society has developed this economic domain, and the social domain and the economic domain, we exist within an ecological domain that has been impacted negatively over these decades, and that we cannot continue in this way. And so we have to change, act, prevent, adapt, and mostly we have to regenerate, which is the last graphic, because all our past development has caused a lot of degradation, and that's why biodiversity is disappearing. And we have not only to be sustainable, which is the net zero point, but we have to go beyond and be restorative and be regenerative. So like some of the species that are disappearing will thrive back again. And I'm saying this, somebody that lives from Quebec that knows that if Quebec can generate and export electricity, it's only because we have major big rivers in which we can build hydroelectric power. Incredible, huge. I'm talking from the province of Quebec, where we have 95% of the whole world maple syrup industry. And if something happened to our maple trees, well, then this economy will disappear. And if I go to Brazil and even if I go to Alberta, their economy is based on the oil sands. What will happen when they get rid of the last drop of oil sands? What will happen to that economy? We don't see changes yet. So I invite you to look into my webpage if you're looking for any of my op-eds or of my white papers. Everything is there, or the bill S243 that we presented, that we call it CAFA. You can find it there. Thank you so much.
This has been absolutely remarkable. So many actionable insights. Thank you. Thank you to everyone, all the attendees who joined us today. Thank you, Senator Rosa Galvez, for all your work that you do, your consistent leadership, and your time for with us today. Um, as always, we close this session by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who have toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stewards whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.